Lonely Orphan rocked a frightened native girl through the night. Next day, 900 warriors waited. The desert stretched endlessly, a strange landscape of red rock mesas and glowing plants that flickered like distant stars. Dust swirled in the wind, carrying a faint metallic scent from the mining drones that hummed somewhere far away. In this lonely place wandered a boy no older than 15, thin and dusty, with a worn leather satchel slung over his shoulder. His name was Eli, though no one had called him that in years. He was an orphan, abandoned when raiders destroyed his small settlement on the outskirts of the frontier planet. Since then, he had survived alone, moving quietly through canyons and plateaus, always watching the skies for danger, always listening for the faintest sound of predators. Tonight, the desert seemed different. The wind howled through the canyons with unusual force, stirring the dust into swirling storms. Eli clutched his cloak tighter around his shoulders, squinting through the storm to see if there was shelter nearby. His feet ached from walking, but he kept moving. Survival demanded it. He had learned long ago that hesitation could cost him his life. It was then that he noticed a small figure huddled among the rocks. At first he thought it might be some stray animal seeking refuge, but as he approached he realized it was a girl. She was thin, wearing a faded cloak over a simple dress, her dark hair matted from the storm. She trembled, hugging herself tightly, her wide eyes darting around as if expecting the wind itself to reach out and harm her. She looked no older than 12, but something about her carried the weight of fear that made Eli pause. He knelt down at a safe distance, raising his hands slowly. "Hey," he said softly. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." His voice was calm but low, carried on the wind so it wouldn't startle her. The girl flinched but didn't run. She seemed unsure whether to trust him. Eli noticed her lips quiver, and he guessed she had been crying. He reached into his satchel and pulled out a small water pouch, holding it out. "You must be thirsty," he said. "Here. Drink." She hesitated, glancing around at the canyon walls as if they might collapse on her. Finally, with a trembling hand, she took the pouch and sipped carefully. Eli smiled faintly. Even this small gesture of trust felt like a victory. "Are you alone?" he asked gently. The girl nodded once, eyes wide. She didn't speak, but Eli could see the relief in her expression at having someone else in the storm. "Then let's find somewhere safe," he said. He stood and extended his hand, and after a long moment, she took it. Her small fingers barely reached around his, but she clung tightly. They moved through the canyon, Eli leading her to a shallow alcove sheltered from the wind. Bioluminescent plants cast a soft blue glow, and the swirling dust outside seemed less threatening here. The girl shivered, pressing herself against the rock, and Eli knelt beside her. He noticed that she had scratches along her arms, likely from climbing through the rocks. Carefully he tore a piece of cloth from his cloak and wrapped it around her arm to protect the cuts. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. The girl hesitated again, then whispered, "Maya." It felt good to say a name aloud, to give a person an identity. "I'm Eli. You're safe here. I'll keep you safe through the night." Maya looked at him with cautious eyes. "Safe?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "The others, the raiders, they..." Ellie nodded, understanding without needing more words. "I know," he said softly. "I've seen what they can do. But tonight, they can't reach us. I'll make sure of it." He gathered some of the glowing plants and arranged them around their small shelter, creating a circle of light that would guide any wandering travelers but still keep them hidden in the shadows. He then took off his worn cloak and wrapped it around Maya, tucking it around her shoulders and chest. She shivered less now, her small body starting to relax against the warmth. Eli sat beside her, keeping a careful watch on the canyon mouth. The wind howled outside, carrying with it strange sounds, distant screeches, the faint hum of flying machines far above, and the occasional crack of shifting rocks. He whispered stories quietly to Maya, stories of distant stars, of creatures that lived in the desert but only came out at night, and of the small acts of courage that could save a life. Maya listened, wide-eyed, occasionally asking questions in a small, uncertain voice. Eli answered patiently, knowing that distraction would help her calm down. The night was long, and the wind never truly stopped, but inside their small alcove, they created a tiny bubble of safety and warmth. At some point, exhaustion overcame them both. Maya's head fell onto Eli's shoulder, and he adjusted his cloak to make her more comfortable. He could feel her breathing slowly even out, a small sign that she was beginning to trust him. Eli watched the stars through the gaps in the canyon walls. Even in the chaos of the universe, he thought, Some small things could be controlled by keeping someone alive through the storm. Hours passed. The storm subsided, leaving only a faint wind brushing across the glowing sands. Eli kept vigil, listening for any sign of danger. A faint rustling came from above, but it was only a small desert creature, harmless and curious. He exhaled slowly, letting himself relax a little. Maya stirred but did not wake, and for the first time in a long while, Eli felt a quiet sense of peace. By the first light of dawn, the canyon transformed. Dust had settled, and the glowing plants reflected the rising sun in soft golden hues. Maya awoke slowly, blinking at the light, her fear replaced by curiosity. She looked at Eli, and for the first time, he saw a spark of hope in her eyes. "You kept me safe," she said softly. "I promised," Eli replied. "And I always keep my promises." They shared a small smile, the kind that only forms between two people who have survived a long night together. For a moment, the desert seemed less harsh, less empty. Two strangers, both alone, had found each other in the vast expanse of the frontier. Eli helped Maya to her feet. They had a long journey ahead. The girl needed to return to her people, and he needed to continue surviving. But for now, they walked side by side, cautiously optimistic, stepping over the glowing sands toward a ridge that promised safety, or at least the hope of it. As they crested the first ridge, Eli paused and looked out over the canyon below. Smoke signals rose in the distance, faint but clear against the morning light. His heart quickened. Those were signs of life. Someone had survived the night. Someone had returned. "Do you see that?" Eli asked. Maya nodded, her eyes wide with recognition and relief. They're waiting," she said. Eli didn't know who they were yet, but he knew they meant she wasn't alone anymore. And for the first time, he didn't feel quite so alone himself. The desert stretched before them, endless and unforgiving, but Eli and Maya stepped forward together, ready to face whatever came next. And as they moved toward the distant smoke, neither could yet imagine the magnitude of what awaited. The thousands of warriors who would descend upon the canyon that day, drawn by a bond forged in the heart of a storm. For now, all that mattered was the quiet promise of safety, the small comfort of companionship, and the first rays of a sun that would witness a new story of courage, trust, and survival. The sun rose higher over the alien canyon, casting long shadows across the red rocks and the glowing blue plants. Eli helped Maya steady herself as they descended the ridge. Her small hand clung tightly to his, and he could feel her heartbeat quick against his own. The night had been long, and both were exhausted, but neither wanted to stop. Somewhere below, her people waited, and the thought of reuniting with her clan pushed them forward. The desert stretched wide and empty before them. The ground was uneven, littered with jagged stones, glowing fungi, and scattered bones of creatures long gone. Eli scanned the horizon constantly, wary of any movement. The frontier was harsh, and it never forgave carelessness. He had learned that in the past, and he made sure Maya understood it now. "Stay close," he whispered. "We don't know what's out there." Maya nodded silently. She had grown quiet since dawn, taking in the new light and the strange shapes of alien plants. Eli noticed how alert her eyes were, scanning the landscape like a trained scout. She was young, yes, but she had the instincts of someone who had survived on this land before. They moved through the canyon's narrow paths, twisting around cliffs and slipping over loose gravel. Every step was deliberate. The desert had many dangers, sudden drop-offs, hidden crevices, and scavenger machines left behind by settlers. Eli kept one hand on his small blaster, the other holding Maya. Though the weapon was more for warning than real protection, its weight reminded him that he had to be ready for anything. After a while, they heard a faint hum above them. Eli froze, raising his head. Far above, hovering in the sky, a small scouting drone moved silently. Its bright sensors swept over the canyon, searching for movement. Eli ducked behind a large rock, pulling Maya down with him. "They're just machines," he whispered, "but they could alert someone if they see us." Maya's eyes were wide with fear, and Eli patted her hand. "It's okay. We'll stay hidden. Keep your head low." They waited, watching the drone pass. When it moved out of sight, Eli led Maya along a hidden path that cut between glowing plants and crumbling rocks. The light from the flora created shifting shadows, making them harder to spot. Eli realized that nature itself was giving them a chance. Hours passed and the terrain grew more challenging. The desert opened into a wide plateau, its edges falling sharply into deep canyons. The wind picked up again, carrying dust that stung their eyes and throat. Eli shielded Maya with his cloak as best he could. She stumbled a few times, but he caught her each time, steadying her and whispering encouragement. "You're stronger than you think," he said. "Just a little further, and we'll see someone soon." Maya nodded, her small face set with determination. Eli could see the fear had not left her entirely, but it was tempered now by trust in him. The bond they had formed overnight gave them both strength. Suddenly, movement caught Eli's eye. A group of settlers appeared on a distant ridge, riding sleek hoverbikes. They were armed with energy rifles, scanning the plateau. Eli froze. They had no idea who he and Maya were, and any encounter could turn deadly. "We have to hide," he whispered, dragging Maya behind a cluster of glowing rocks. The hoverbikes glided silently above the rocks, their riders searching for signs of life. Eli held Maya close, her small body trembling against his. They waited, barely daring to breathe, as the riders passed a few meters away. When the last bike disappeared over the ridge, Eli exhaled slowly. "That was close," he said. "Too close." Maya looked up at him, fear still in her eyes. "Will they come back?" "But we're smart. We know the land better than they do." He scanned the horizon and spotted a narrow canyon path leading down toward a river of shimmering liquid. Not water, but some strange glowing substance unique to the planet. It would provide cover and a quicker route to her clan. "Come on," he said. "This way." "We'll use the river to hide." The path was steep, and Eli had to hold Maya's hand tightly as they climbed down. Her small feet slipped a few times, but with his help, she managed. Along the way, he taught her how to listen to the land, the direction of the wind, the movement of small creatures, even the faint hum of distant machinery. Every lesson was survival, every step careful and deliberate. By midday, they reached the glowing river. Its surface shimmered with colors that shifted like liquid rainbows. Eli could see that its banks were safe, at least for a short distance. He led Maya along the edge, keeping low and moving slowly. The glow of the river helped them see, but also kept them visible if anyone looked from a distance. Hours passed in tense silence. The desert seemed endless, and fatigue was starting to set in. Eli could feel it in his bones, but he forced himself to keep moving. Maya leaned heavily on him at times, exhausted but refusing to stop. He admired her spirit. She had faced terrifying dangers and still kept going. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the glowing river, they spotted movement in the distance. A cloud of dust rose over the plateau, and Eli froze. He could see hundreds of small figures, distant but unmistakable. Horses, or creatures similar to horses but adapted to the alien terrain, were moving across the desert. Their riders carried spears and shields, and Eli counted quickly in his head. Too many to be raiders. "Who are they?" Maya whispered, clutching his arm. Eli shook his head. "I don't know yet, but we need to be careful." They crouched behind a rocky outcrop, watching the approaching figures. Eli realized that these were not hostile settlers. The way the riders moved, organized, precise, disciplined, suggested a tribe, a large one, and if his guess was correct, these could be Maya's people. "Maybe," Maya whispered. "Maybe they are my clan." Eli gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. "Then we'll wait and see." No sudden moves. The figures drew closer, and Eli noticed the colors of their banners, symbols painted on their shields, and the faint smoke signals rising from the distance. It all felt familiar, like a memory from Maya's childhood. She breathed softly, eyes fixed on the riders, hope flickering across her face. Eli kept a careful watch on the plateau. He did not know if the warriors would accept him, an outsider, or if they would see him as a threat. But he knew one thing. He had saved Maya's life, and he could not abandon her now. As the sun set, the plateau glowed in oranges and purples, the desert alive with the hum of wind and the faint crackle of alien flora. The riders continued their march, now closer than ever. Eli whispered quietly to Maya, reminding her to stay low and calm. "You're almost there," he said. "Just a little more, and you'll be with your people." Maya nodded, her small hand gripping his tightly. She had endured fear, exhaustion, and the harsh desert night, but now the promise of reunion drove her forward. Eli felt the same, a strange mixture of nervousness and hope. He had survived alone for so long, and now he faced something far greater than the desert itself, a tribe of 900 warriors waiting ahead. They crouched in the shadows as the first riders reached the base of the canyon. Eli counted carefully, his heart racing. Hundreds of warriors, organized and alert, scanned the land. Their presence was imposing, but Eli could see that they had no intention of harming Maya. She was clearly one of their own. The boy's mind raced. How would they react to him? Would they see him as a protector or a stranger? He had no time to guess. All he could do was stay close to Maya and hope that trust, courage, and honesty would guide them through. The canyon walls echoed faintly with the footsteps and hoofbeats of the approaching warriors. The glow from the river reflected in their eyes, and Eli could see Maya's hope grow with every passing moment. Finally, the lead riders reached the base of the canyon, and Eli realized there was no turning back. He had to face them.
He whispered to Maya, "Stay behind me. Let me do the talking."
Maya nodded, trembling but silent. Eli took a deep breath, stepped out from behind the rocks, and raised his hands slowly to show he meant no harm. The warriors stopped, their eyes narrowing as they assessed him. It was a tense moment, the kind that stretched time and made every second feel like a lifetime. Then, slowly, one of the elders stepped forward, raising a hand in greeting. Eli's heart pounded, but he knew that the night's struggles had brought them to this point. Survival, trust, and courage had carried them across the desert, and now the outcome depended on honesty and respect. The boy and the girl had journeyed together through fear, exhaustion, and danger. And now, at the edge of the plateau, with 900 warriors waiting, their story was about to enter a new chapter, a chapter of reunion, trust, and the beginning of something greater than either of them could have imagined. The warriors moved closer, their figures becoming clearer in the fading light of the desert. Eli kept Maya close, his heart hammering. He had faced danger before, raiders, wild creatures, the harsh desert itself, but nothing like this. Hundreds of riders, disciplined and armed, their eyes sharp and alert, were now watching him. The wind carried their soft chants and the rhythmic beat of hooves over the rocks. Maya clung to him, small and trembling. Eli whispered, "It's okay. They're not going to hurt you. I'll be right here." Eli knew he had to act carefully. One wrong move, one sudden gesture, and these warriors might see him as a threat rather than the protector of their young. He stepped forward slowly, keeping his hands visible and his movements calm. The elder rider at the front raised a hand in greeting. His face was weathered, lined from years under the sun and wind. He dismounted slowly, his horse kneeling obediently to the ground. The other warriors stayed on their mounts, circling cautiously, forming a protective perimeter around the boy and the girl. The elders spoke in a language Eli didn't understand at first, soft and musical but full of authority. Maya stepped forward, her small voice translating and explaining. "He saved me," she said, her words trembling but clear. He kept me safe through the storm and the night. He is my friend. He helped me." The elder studied Eli carefully. His eyes narrowed, taking in the boy's worn clothes, the dirt on his face, the careful way he held Maya. There was silence for a long moment. Then the elder nodded slowly, his expression softening. Eli exhaled slowly. I just wanted to keep her safe," he said. "That's all." The elder extended a hand, and Eli hesitated before stepping closer. Maya stayed close to him, her small fingers still clutching his sleeve. Eli could feel the boyish fear in her, the same fear he had felt during the long desert night. But now, in the presence of her people, that fear was mingled with hope. The elder placed a hand on Eli's shoulder, and though the gesture was simple, it carried weight. Eli realized he was being accepted, at least tentatively. Relief washed over him, but he stayed alert. He knew that acceptance among strangers, no matter how well-intentioned, could be fragile. "Your people, they saved you," Eli said, looking at Maya. "They're here." "Yes, my clan." The elder spoke again, and this time Eli could see the way the warriors relaxed slightly. Their hands moved to their belts and spears, lowering their weapons but staying alert. They circled around Eli and Maya, a protective ring. Some of them dismounted, coming closer to see the girl they had found again after the storm. Eli realized that these warriors had been searching for her, worried for her safety. He noticed the way they looked at him, curious, respectful, cautious. They were not hostile, but they wanted to understand. Eli spoke carefully. "I found her, alone, in the canyon. She was scared. I stayed with her. That's all." The elder nodded, then gestured for one of the younger warriors to approach. The young rider examined Eli closely, checking his gear, his stance, and the small blaster he carried. After a moment, the youth stepped back, giving a small nod. It was clear that Eli had passed some unspoken test. Maya stepped forward, still clinging to Eli's side. "He didn't leave me," she said. "He kept me safe." The elders studied her for a long moment, then spoke in his language again. Maya translated, "He is telling the truth. He is my protector." A murmur passed through the gathered warriors. a mixture of relief and approval. Eli felt his shoulders relax slightly. For the first time in a long time, he did not feel alone. He had survived the desert, the storm, and now he had earned a place, if only a small one, among this tribe. The elder nodded once more, signaling that the boy was welcome. The warriors lowered their weapons fully, and some of them began to speak in a softer tone, addressing Maya, checking her for injuries, and offering her water and food. Eli watched silently, grateful that she was safe. He had carried her through the night and the dangerous journey, but now she was truly among her own people. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the desert sky glowed in warm hues of orange and purple. Eli noticed the change in the warriors' demeanor. They were no longer tense, no longer alert for danger. They had accepted him, or at least recognized that he meant no harm. The tribe moved around him and Maya, preparing a place for them to rest. Eli and Maya followed the elder to a flat area near the river, where the warriors had set up a small camp. Fires burned softly, casting shadows on the glowing plants. Eli sat down, letting Maya rest against him. She leaned her head on his shoulder, exhausted but comforted. He felt the warmth of the camp, the soft murmur of conversation, and the distant calls of creatures in the desert. For a moment, everything felt peaceful. The elder approached again, speaking softly to Maya. Eli watched, trying to understand. The elder seemed to be asking questions about the night, the storm, and what had happened. Maya answered quietly, glancing at Eli occasionally, her trust in him evident. Eli realized that she was not just recounting events, she was protecting him, showing the tribe that he had acted with courage and care. The elder nodded after hearing her story, then turned to Eli. He spoke slowly, carefully, using words Eli could understand. "You have bravery," he said. "You kept her safe. You showed respect for life." Ellie's chest swelled with a mixture of pride and humility. "I only did what anyone should do," he said. The elder smiled faintly. "Perhaps, but not all do. You risked yourself when you had no reason to. That is courage."
Eli nodded.
It felt strange to be praised by strangers, yet he accepted it. For so long he had been alone, surviving only because he had to. Now someone recognized the choices he had made, and it felt like a small victory. The night grew cooler, and the warriors settled around the camp. Some prepared food, others tended to the glowing plants to ensure their light did not fade completely. Eli and Maya found a small space near the fire to rest. Maya curled up, exhaustion pulling her into sleep almost immediately. Eli stayed awake for a while, keeping watch as he always had. But the weight of the night, the journey, and the relief of reaching safety made his eyes heavy. As he sat quietly, he looked at Maya, sleeping peacefully, and then at the surrounding tribe. They were not just strangers now. They were a living, breathing reminder that he was part of something larger, something enduring. The elders had accepted him, and Maya's people had welcomed her home. Eli allowed himself a small smile. For the first time in a long while, he felt hope. Not just for survival, but for connection, for belonging, and for trust. The night had been long, dangerous, and uncertain, but it had brought them here. By the early hours of the morning, Eli finally lay down beside Maya. The glow from the river reflected softly on the canyon walls, and the fires of the camp flickered gently. He kept one eye open at first, as habit, but gradually he allowed himself to relax. Maya stirred slightly, murmuring, but remained asleep. Eli thought about the journey, the desert, and the warriors waiting, and he felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. They had made it through the storm, the danger, and the unknown. They had survived, together. And now among the tribe, they had found something more than mere survival. Trust, recognition, and a place in a world that often felt harsh and unforgiving. As the desert night stretched on, Eli realized that the story was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, new dangers to face, and lessons to learn about courage, respect, and loyalty. But for now, he and Maya were safe. And in the quiet of the canyon, surrounded by warriors who now looked upon him with cautious respect, he allowed himself to hope. The boy who had wandered alone through the desert, the girl who had trembled through the storm. Together, they had survived. And together, they would face whatever came next. The first light of dawn painted the canyon in soft gold and purple hues. Eli stirred awake, careful not to disturb Maya, who still slept peacefully beside him. Around them, the warriors of her clan moved with quiet efficiency, tending to the fires, adjusting their gear, and checking the glowing plants that lit the camp. Eli felt a sense of awe. 900 warriors. He had never seen so many people together, and the sheer presence of them was both humbling and intimidating. He He stood slowly, stretching stiff muscles. The night had been long, but for the first time in years he felt safe. Maya stirred and opened her eyes, blinking against the morning light. She looked at him, a small smile forming on her lips. "We're still here," she whispered. "Yes," Eli replied softly. "We made it." The elder from the night before approached, his expression calm but watchful. He gestured for Eli to follow. Eli obeyed, glancing back at Maya, who nodded encouragingly. Together they walked toward the center of the camp, where the warriors had formed a loose circle around a small ceremonial area. The sound of morning drums and chants began to fill the canyon, rhythmic and steady, a heartbeat of the tribe. The elder spoke to Eli in a slow, deliberate manner, choosing words that were simple but carried weight. "You have shown bravery and care. You have protected her when danger was near. You have risked yourself to save another. That is honor." "I only did what I had to," he said. "I couldn't leave her." The elder nodded. "That is the way of the brave. But now you are part of something greater. You have a choice. Remain as a guest or stay among us." Eli felt his heart quicken. Stay among them? For so long he had been alone, surviving day by day, never trusting anyone completely. The thought of belonging, of having people who accepted him, was overwhelming. He glanced at Maya, who watched him with wide, hopeful eyes. I, Eli began, but the words caught in his throat. He had never imagined a life beyond survival. "I would like to stay," he said finally. The elder smiled faintly, and the surrounding warriors murmured in approval. Eli could see that his choice was respected. He felt a warmth in his chest, a mixture of relief, pride, and hope. For the first time, he had a place in the world, a role beyond merely surviving. The day unfolded with a sense of calm and purpose. Eli helped Maya adjust to the camp, guiding her as she met her extended family. She introduced him as the one who had kept her safe, and the warriors listened with quiet respect. Some approached him to ask questions about his journey, his life in the desert, and his experiences surviving alone. Eli answered honestly, careful to show humility and respect. The warriors shared food and water, and Eli experienced the taste of fresh fruit for the first time in weeks. Maya laughed quietly, the sound like music, as she introduced him to younger members of the clan. Eli realized that laughter, trust, and companionship were as essential to survival as food and shelter. As the sun climbed higher, the clan began preparations for a small ceremony to honor Eli's courage. A circle of warriors gathered, raising their voices in song and rhythm, while the elders spoke of the boy who had risked himself to protect one of their own. Eli stood in the center, his heart pounding, as the tribe acknowledged his bravery. Maya stayed by his side, her small hand resting lightly on his arm. "You saved me," she said softly. "They see it now." "Yes," Eli whispered, "but I didn't do it for praise. I did it because it was right." The ceremony ended with quiet applause and nods of approval from the warriors. Eli felt a sense of pride that was unfamiliar but not uncomfortable. He had earned their respect through courage and kindness, and that respect was genuine. Later, Eli and Maya walked to the edge of the glowing river, watching the morning sun reflect on its shimmering surface. The light danced across the water, creating patterns of color that shifted like living things. Eli knelt and dipped his hand into the liquid, amazed by its warmth and subtle glow. Maya crouched beside him, touching the water carefully, marveling at the strange beauty of her home. "I never thought I'd see this," Eli said quietly. "After everything, I didn't think life could be this peaceful." Maya looked at him, her eyes bright. "It's because we survived together," she said. "You kept me alive. You gave me hope." Eli felt a lump in his throat. "We helped each other," he said. "I couldn't have done it alone either." The rest of the day passed with quiet activity. Eli learned the ways of the tribe, observing their routines, learning small survival skills he had never known. He helped repair shelters, gather glowing plants for light, and even assist with small livestock that grazed on the alien plateau. The tribe's children began to warm to him, asking questions and listening intently as he shared stories of the desert, of storms, and of nights spent under endless stars. Maya led him to a small elevated area overlooking the camp. "This is where we watch for storms," she explained, "and enemies." Eli looked out across the vast desert, the glowing river winding like a ribbon through the landscape. He could see distant mesas, faint smoke rising in the distance, and the soft hum of distant drones. The world was wide and full of danger, but it also held beauty, resilience, and life. For the first time, he felt connected to it all. As evening approached, the tribe gathered again for a shared meal. Eli sat beside Maya and her family, sharing food and conversation. He listened more than he spoke, learning the rhythms and customs of the people who had taken him in. He realized that survival was not just about avoiding danger. It was about trust, cooperation, and respect. Later, the elder approached Eli again. "You have shown your worth," he said quietly. "But remember, courage is not just in one act. It is in every choice, every day. You have a chance to be more than a survivor. You can be part of something lasting." Eli nodded. He understood. The desert had taught him to survive, but the tribe was teaching him to live. He glanced at Maya, who was now laughing with her friends, and felt a warmth in his chest that had been absent for so long. He was no longer alone. Night fell again, but this time it was different. The wind whispered softly through the canyon, carrying the hum of the glowing plants and the quiet chatter of the warriors settling down. Eli and Maya found a spot near the river where the light from the plants shimmered gently on the water. They sat together, watching as the canyon came alive with subtle sounds of nightlife, small creatures moving, the distant calls of animals, and the soft crackle of campfires. Maya leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "Do you think we'll always be safe here?" she asked softly. Eli wrapped an arm around her. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I do know we have each other, and we have them. That's more than enough for now." They sat in silence for a long while, letting the calm of the desert night sink in. Eli thought about the journey that had brought them here, the storm, the danger, and the long trek across the canyon. Every step, every choice had led to this moment. He had risked everything to protect Maya, and now he had something he had never had before, a place to belong. The night deepened, and the warriors slept around them, their fires casting gentle shadows. Eli and Maya remained awake a little longer, talking quietly about the desert, their fears, and the adventures that awaited them. They shared small laughs and stories, building a bond that would endure far beyond the canyon walls. As Eli finally closed his eyes, he felt a sense of peace that was new and strange. The desert was no longer a place of loneliness and danger. It was a place of life, hope, and connection. He had survived the storm, protected a young girl, and earned the trust of her people. And in doing so, he had discovered something even more valuable: belonging, friendship, and courage. The boy who had wandered alone, and the girl who had trembled through the storm, had found more than safety. They had found a family, a tribe, and a new beginning. The desert stretched endlessly around them, but it was no longer empty. It was full of life, laughter, and the promise of tomorrow. And as the stars appeared above, mirrored in the glowing river below, Eli realized that no matter what the future held, he would never again be truly alone. Together with Maya and her people, he had found a place in the world, a place where courage, trust, and kindness could thrive, and where even the most lonely orphan could call a home.